Good evening, everybody out there in Connersville and Fayette County. We're glad to be with you tonight. We have a very special program. As you know, over the last several months, our police department and the state police have been working together on the heroin problem that we've experienced here in Connersville and Fayette County, as in many other counties around the state. So tonight I have as my guest our Chief of Police and a longtime police officer, David Counselor, who's on my right and be on your left. And David, glad you're here with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. And next to him, on the right of David, we have Sergeant Brian Metcalf. And Sergeant Brian Metcalf comes to us from the Indiana State Police Department, another longtime police officer and been involved in this task force. So in order of introduction, I'll go with our guest first. Sergeant Metcalf, how long have you been a state police officer?
I've been on the Indiana State Police for 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
And that entire time I've been assigned to Fayette County. I am currently the squad sergeant for this area, which used to be the Connersville district, but now it's the Pendleton district. I supervise the troops in Union County, Fayette County, and Rush County in this particular district. I used to have Franklin County as well, but it has moved to Versailles. But 20 years, I've worked the same roads, along with Dave here too.
You're a working supervisor, I would say. Is that?
Yes, I'm currently a working supervisor in this area.
Okay. So you know Fayette County pretty well.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Have you seen a lot of changes over your career?
A lot of changes. Yeah.
And not all for the best.
No, some good, some bad.
Some good and some bad.
Yep.
Okay. You live here in Fayette County?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Got a wife and children?
Yes, I do.
I won't ask you to give us your name. That's just fine. David, you're born and raised in Connersville, Indiana. I know you were in service.
Yes, I was.
And what were you in?
I was in the United States Army. I was in the military police for 4 years.
4 years. And then you came back from the military police and became a city policeman?
Yes, I did in 1980.
1980. Mm-hmm. And so that makes you a policeman for how long?
35 years.
Retiring in about 2 weeks.
Yes.
And are you excited?
I'm excited.
Okay. All right. You have some children, and I think they're here visiting right now.
I got my daughter and my 2 grandsons here, and I have a son and 2 granddaughters. My son and daughter live in Alaska. One's in Kodiak, my son is, and my daughter lives in Juneau.
That's something.
Yeah.
That's a long way away.
It is a long way away. Yeah. Roughly 6,000 miles. But
roughly 6,000 miles. That's as far as California, isn't it?
Every bit of it.
Yeah. Well, we're here tonight because we had a very special problem. One of you want to tell me when the problem started showing up? The big problem.
Well, the big problem started back in September when we had
September of 14.
September 14. We had 20 overdoses of heroin in 20 days, 5 resulting in death. And so and we've had overdoses in the past, and they were spotty. You know, you might have one every couple months, something like that. But 20 in 20 days for our size population of Connersville, being around 13,400, I believe it is. That was quite a bit, and it caught the news media's attention, and we started talking that. And of course, it got the governor's attention, which was brought to the attention of State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, and Mr. Carter called me on the phone at home and asked what could the Indiana State Police do for the city of Connersville. And at the time, I told him, I said, well, I'm not real sure. I got maybe some ideas, but I told him I'd get back with him if that'd be okay, and he said it'd be fine. Well, I got with another old friend of mine in state police, Todd Fields, and I went and made an appointment.
Is he a retired officer, or is he still
No,
working?
he's a officer. No, he works in Richmond.
Okay.
And he does some investigations on an administrative side. Anyway, I went and talked to Todd, and we sat down for a couple hours and kind of hashed this thing out to what might work and this type of thing. And so about a week, within the week, I got back with Superintendent Carter and hashed some things around with him and told him what we might like to try if the state police really wanted to assist us. And so what happened was that's where your Connersville, Task Force Connersville came about. And ironically, Todd Fields became the team leader of that. It's kind of like at my request, because he's another officer who's been on for about 25 years, I believe, 25, 26 years, and he's got a military police in the Air Force background, and also he was on the Phoenix Police Department back in the mid-'80s for about 5 years, I believe. And he come to the state police well groomed and well knowledged, and of course he's a first sergeant in the state police, and so with him and I together kind of developed this plan of a task force involving 6 different agencies. Of course, one being the Connersville Police Department, the Indiana State Police, and along with excise police, state parole board police, the parole officers, also Fayette County Probation Department, and along with the Fayette County Sheriff's Department. And am I leaving anybody out there? And so anyway, those 6 agencies coming together with the manpower, with all of us were having manpower situations. We all came together, and we brought back the state police post. We brought it back alive for a while, but it was in dire need of some repairs. But it was okay through the winter months to work it. But when it started getting warm, it was getting a little warm over there, and the air conditioning getting working, and it would take a lot of money to fix the place up. So we really had to move somewhere else. But I'm kind of getting off my subject here. We got this task force formulated and initiated, and of course Brian here, he's been a member from the start. He was like one of the team leaders. We had like three team leaders from our department, from Carnes department, from state police, and our officers as a team led a couple of shifts starting out, and we were doing a lot of drug interdiction, and that led to some investigations, and we made a lot of arrests, and at the same time we wasn't out just to put everybody in jail. We were out there trying to help people too with a drug outreach program, but we got very little participation in that, because people really have to want to get help. They really want to have to change, and a lot of people, when they're high like that, they don't want to think about change right at that moment until they're coming off their high or
Let's
whatever.
stop there for a minute, Chief Counselor. Sergeant Metcalf, you were involved with this from the beginning.
That's correct.
Did you think this was going to work? Did you think this was the thing we should do, or was it a stab in the dark, or what do you think?
Well, at first I had no idea, because I've never been involved with a task force with so many different agencies which investigate things completely different. The way they do business is completely different.
Can you tell us a little bit about it without giving your secrets? What's
I
different?
mean, there's really no secret. It's just procedures that each department has to follow, like a standard operating procedure.
How did you come up with these things? How did you develop this?
Well, our departments each develop their own standard operating procedure, but what we had to do is mix together and decide which avenue to take that would, give us our greatest bang for our buck with what we were doing. Parole has a role to play, as well as probation, and then the police just come in and, police departments really do things the same for the most part. It's just paperwork that's a little bit different. But it wasn't so much as the department's procedures as it was the personalities that were put into the positions in which they were. The success of this task force was completely the success was due to all the personalities that were put together.
The cooperation of this group
I
of
mean,
people.
there's always those little things that are said to each other, but that's just the kind of work we do. Yeah, it's the personalities that were put together that made it a success.
Did you pick
without
these
a doubt.
people to do this, or how did you do it?
I did not pick the people, but the department heads gave us access to certain people, and they all chose the right ones. They absolutely all chose the correct ones.
So you would meet together over there and formulate a plan, and
That's the way it happened every day. Every day in the morning, we would sit down. We would go over what happened the night before, what worked, what didn't, what we could do better, what different avenue we need to go down, and then we would formulate our plan from there, and then go. Every day, even to this day, the task force is still going, and every day it's something different.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what happened the night before. We reassess what happened. Like I said, what went good, what went bad, and then continue. I mean, we've incarcerated 168 people in this community since November, and by anybody's standards, that's
in a small community, that's a lot of people.
a lot of people. Now, granted, there are more arrests that were made, or the amount of arrests that were made weren't just drug related. We have gone down different avenues of different investigations, that we came up with as we were getting involved with certain incidents. But
Okay, this was all brought about because heroin was such an addictive drug, and it was killing people. They were having these overdoses and these deaths. Tell me a little bit about heroin. I'm to the age where, we grew up, we didn't even know what that was. What is heroin? What does it do to you? And maybe I'm asking the wrong question to you. I don't know, but what is it really?
Well, it's an opiate, and what heroin is a drug to substitute for, in this situation with most of these people who are on heroin, they were taking prescription drugs, which were opiates, and they tightened up on the prescription laws in regards to pharmacies and this type of thing.
Yeah, doctors began to go back and forth their records, the hospitals, and hard to get.
Yeah, a lot of doctors have been getting in trouble for passing scripts and this type of thing. So, the federal government and the state government, they've tightened up on laws in regards to the access to prescription medication that people used to get. And so what happened here is since it's hard to get this stuff, their substitute was heroin. Heroin is easy to buy.
What's heroin look like?
It comes in different forms. It could be look like a chunk of.
could be like a rock-like substance. It could be a powder-like substance.
Yeah.
It just depends on if it's cut yet or not.
It could be color white. Could be brown. Just different colors.
And so, do you eat it, drink it, smoke it? What do you do with it?
Well, they've about ingested about any way you can imagine, but
Yes.
usually most of the time they inject it with a needle in the arm.
So you have to mix it with
or
water,
someplace.
or what do you do?
No, they usually melt it down, and they're injecting it so many many ways. And Brian, can you shed some light on the different ways they intake this stuff?
They'll shoot it everywhere they can get it in. That's what it boils down to.
And
So-
They'll shoot it in places where they can hide, so people don't see it readily.
Do they just do it? They don't try to do it in the vein. They just do it in the tissue, and it absorbs into the system. Then,
Well,
or do they actually try to get it in the vein?
No, it's ingested into the vein.
Okay. And then, So if you just take a little, are you okay?
No.
What happens is how the stuff is cut, and a lot of people might be used to
What when you say words cut with a
the
knife?
the
Cut, what do you mean?
the potency, the amount of heroin that's in that little rock or that powder. You know,
Okay.
it's the way it's.
It's mixed with something is usually what's happened.
So you
That,
so you're
that way
kinda-
that way the dealer gets more
you're,
out
you're
of
playing
his.
Russian roulette then when you don't know how much you put in, right?
That's exactly right.
Exactly right, and that's where if someone's used to taking a certain amount of heroin and then they go buy it from somebody else, and that mixture of whatever they mix with is a little more higher quantity of heroin than what they are used to, then that's what happens. They overdose.
Okay, so if you take this heroin, do you act like you're drunk? Do you?
Well,
I mean, does it make you happy, or what does it do for you?
some people make happy, but some people have to take it to exist. So you know, and I.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's
they're
kind
just
of like
depressed, or?
it's kind of like people who get on, and a lot of them started on prescription drugs and legitimately from back injuries or some kind of pain medication or something like that. So I had it explained to me like this one time: you got us here, this is normal, and these people are normal who get addicted. So they start taking medication for their pain, and it might get them a little tipsy or a little high or whatever. And also some people are wired different than other people, you know, and they're more apt to get more out of it in a sensation of being high. But what happens is they're taking this stuff, and we're normal, and what happens is it starts bouncing like this, and after a while they're taking this stuff and they're trying just to be normal. So you get somebody that's flat out sick, and they get their fix. They've injected themselves with heroin, and what happens? It brings them up to where they're almost functioning normal, depending on where they are in their life and how long they've been taking and everything else. But what they're trying to do after a while, it's like this, and after a while, it's just they're getting their bodies are getting immune to this stuff. So the more they can't get that high anymore, and so they take more of it and more of it.
Yeah.
And
you know,
that's what
I've had
happens.
surgery 3 or 4 times, and they always write prescription to take. I don't know what it is. I have once or twice taken 1 or 2 of those, and the room spins. I throw up. That to me don't seem like fun time.
Well, like I said, some people are wired for it and some people aren't, and that's the way with
So
alcohol.
would it make you sick?
Yes, it can make you sick.
Well, I've been told, and I don't know. They said that heroin puts you on the highest high you've ever been in your life.
It probably does to when you're there, but
How long does it last?
well, it could last depending on the individual and how much they
I mean,
take.
you have to have a fix 2 or 3 times a day, or once a month. or-
Usually, we find it it's about a day or two.
I'll be honest with you. I have no idea how long this high lasts. All I know is that about every 4 days, if they go about 4 days, they start getting sick. I mean, physically sick, and they have to have another hit of the drug. And I think that's kind of what's dangerous about this drug is they care nothing about anything except getting high because they're trying to get back to normal.
Okay.
So how long the high lasts, I have no idea. All I know is that they start physically getting sick within 3 to 4 days after they have had their last dose of the drug.
They start going through withdrawals.
Yeah. And as David said, when we started this thing, they have to have it, and so they don't care how they get it.
No, they
They have to have money for it. Heroin costs a lot of money, or is it cheap?
Oh well, it's pretty cheap depending where you get it at. I mean, it's
like $5 gets you a dose, or
oh, what is it going right now? Do you know?
I think they can probably get a cap for $20. A cap's probably about 3 or 4 hits, and you know, these are generic numbers because every user we run into has a different number, they use, the different amount of
Mm-hmm.
injections they do a day. So
when
all I can tell you is that the heroin is much cheaper on the street than trying to buy the prescription medication that will do the same on the street.
so you put these guys in jail 160 plus. they all got sick when they went to jail because they couldn't get it.
Oh yes.
Right?
Yeah, they dry out in jail. They
How,
They go through
how long does
withdrawal.
it take to get back to normal?
Well, that's on the individual.
But do they get back to normal?
They'll never, eventually they can get back to normal, but they'll always have that craving, and they have to learn how to fight that craving. And if they go into a rehab, rehabs won't take you not unless you're clean, meaning you've been off of it for a while. They don't want people that are all messed up and on the stuff. They won't take you in like that. You have to be.
Is it more
off.
predominantly women than men, or more men than women, or is it the same?
About the same.
I mean, this drug does not matter what sex you are, what socioeconomical group you're in.
It can be rich, poor.
Yep.
None of it matters. Absolutely none
Once
of it
you
matters.
get on it, you're on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Sad.
Why some people start that, I have no idea. I don't have an answer to that. But
So I presume you've arrested a lot of people you've seen that were high on it.
absolutely.
How do they act when they're high? They try to beat you, or do they?
No, I mean everyone's different.
Yeah.
It's just
Give me
like
a couple examples.
It's just like a drunk. Sometimes you have a happy drunk. Sometimes you have a
Mean
disorderly drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're all a little
Can
different.
you tell when someone's on it?
Yeah.
With your experience.
If unfortunately a lot of them that I have seen are overdosing, and they're breathing. They may breathe 2 or 3 times a minute, and you're trying to keep them going till the paramedics get there.
And then the paramedics get them.
But some of them sleep. Some of them hyper. Some of them talk a lot.
Do they make sense?
No.
No. Now, then the paramedics come, as you mentioned. They give them this Narcan, which is a generic name for the drug they give it to. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much instantly saves their life, right?
Yeah, usually they're unconscious from an overdose. What happens? And
How do they administer the Narcan? Do they inject it?
Well, they have ways to inject it. Now they have a where they can. It's like a little can where they can squirt it in their nose.
A nasal spray.
Spray.
You guys don't carry that stuff, do you? Are you allowed to?
We don't. The city don't carry it. Now some police departments are carrying it. Indianapolis is starting to carry it. The state police starting to carry it?
We have not started carrying that yet.
But that will.
But also with that, with what is administered, I believe it's just good for an opiate drug. So if someone has taken another drug, it will not.
You're done.
It won't have the same effect. So if it is an opiate, then it will neutralize the effects of the opiate.
Yeah, I'm
From what I
asking these
understand.
questions because these are the questions the general public out there, most of us that don't do it, we don't understand it. We don't get what it is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I remember as a kid, I'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would say, "Well, you got to take medicine." I'd run hide in a closet. Nobody wanted to take the medicine first, and that was terrible. And when I got to be in my 20s and I started hearing about people taking drugs, I thought, "Are they nuts?" I never wanted to take any of that stuff. It always tasted bad. When you had to get a shot, we'd run hide behind bushes to keep from getting a shot. When you had to get your polio shot or you had to get your tetanus or whatever you had to get. And now all these people are wanting to do it. They got to be crazy. I just don't get it. And I guess I'm too old to understand. But anyway, where do you think this drug comes from? How do we get to Connersville? Are there people that make a living bringing it in?
Well, in Connersville, there is no big drug dealer. A lot of the users are dealers, and they deal to support their own habit.
So they try to get a hold of some and sell some and take some? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, but a lot of it's coming out of Indianapolis, but mostly around here it's coming out of Dayton, Ohio.
So have you cut that chain coming off through the task force?
Well, we've done our share of interdiction, so to speak, and that's when you cars that have been known to us to be involved with drugs, we'll see them coming back from Ohio, for instance, and usually we have warrants on some, and some of it they're DUI, driving under the influence. there's a lot of things going on here with this. And the intelligence we have in the law enforcement world, this stuff comes from South America, and it's getting shipped up toward Detroit, then filtered down through Indiana and Ohio. But any of the major cities have a problem, and this isn't the only problem. We have it in all the states in the United States, even Alaska and Hawaii. We have this problem in other countries, and it's probably the worst epidemic as far as a drug used that has ever been recorded. We've had a lot of drugs out here in the past, and I mean back in the old days it was LSD or heroin. Heroin's kind of always been around, but not like it is today. It was a nasty drug. It was back in the old days, and people use heroin. It was just like, oh man, that's getting really down and bad.
Now it's common.
It's pretty common anymore. Yeah, cocaine used to be big, and a lot of crack. Of course, a lot of this stuff has always been here, so to speak. But heroin has taken the front row on everything.
If you use this heroin and drink alcohol with it, does that enhance it, or is that like some drugs it does?
Yeah, alcohol can enhance, but anything you take. I mean, you could take prescription medication for a toothache, and drink a few beers, and that can enhance it too. But just like Sergeant Metcalf said, it affects everybody differently. It's just like in a lot of ways, and I'll refer to alcohol. We have happy drunks, we have mean drunks, and we have people that pass out. But we've had people on alcohol for DUI before where they've tested up around 4 or something, and that should be dead, and they're alive, but their immune system,
they're able to tolerate it.
Their immune system, their tolerance to alcohol. Well, it's the same with heroin. People get, like I said a little while ago, on that scale, they're coming up here to try to get normal. But the thing is they built their body with such tolerance that it takes more for them to get high. Then what happens is they do get off of it. Let's say they go clean for a while, and they try hard, but you always have that craving. And then what happens is they have a weak moment, so they go out and they get them a hit of heroin, whatever measurement that is. And well, I used to be able to handle this, Well, they found their system now is slowly coming back to normal, and so when they take this, they take more than what their body used to be able to handle, and then they overdose. And then if somebody don't get their Narcan them pretty quickly, then they're gone.
Yeah. What in the world? And I know this is just speculation, but Sergeant Metcalf, 20 years on the police department, and you've seen things come and go. What's your prediction? When you ride around in your car and when you see this and you go through this, you have to think, where are we going as a society?
Well, I never make predictions, so I just think it's just one thing or one phase that we're going through now, and in a couple of years it could be something else.
Will it go away?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, at least in the foreseeable future, I don't, because it's so cheap and so easy to get right now. Now, back onto how we're trying to combat this thing is, we've also made contacts with other law enforcement agencies here in Indiana and also over in Ohio, and just sharing information. We're dealing with the same people here as they are over there. I mean, just us working together, that's probably how we're going to at least start slowing it down. If we just try to stay in this community, keep our own little bubble here, and try to protect our community, just from the inside, I'm afraid after a while we're just going to be spinning our wheels. So we kind of have to project ourselves out a little bit and make contact, which we have been with departments in Ohio and other counties, surrounding counties. That's probably how I mean, will we ever solve the problem? I hope so. Realistically, I mean, to be honest with you, there's probably always going to be somebody out there who has to have that high, whether it's a heroin or meth or cocaine or paint can. I mean, there's always going to be that person out there, unfortunately.
You know, I'm a funeral director, and I went to mortuary college, and they taught us back in the 60s that a family needs a funeral director about every 12 years. And when you tell me we have how many deaths?
We have, well, since this whole thing started, I'd safely say we've had probably, what, 10 to 12?
You can see how it's changed the statistics in our community. It's to people like us that are not police officers, we look at this and think, oh my land, isn't this awful? And you just hope your kids don't get involved, or your family, and I suppose everybody's family is touched by it. Not only that, the cost of trying to curtail the thing, the cost of the police departments, the cost of equipment, the cost of gasoline to patrol, the cost of the whole thing is hard on society, and I don't get it. Let's kind of leave that heroin alone a little bit. I'm about depressed by this time.
I like to say one more thing there. Yeah, and I'm looking into my camera here, and for you folks out there who know somebody who's taking this stuff and have a problem with it, or if I'm talking to somebody that takes it, it's your choice. It's your choice to get off this stuff. I know of course, I've never been on anything like this, but it's your choice, and I know it must be hard. But you have no future taking this stuff. It's going to kill you, and all you're going to do is leave a lot of loved ones and friends wondering why, asking that question. And so my advice to you is to get off of it and try your darndest. And we try to help people as much as we can to keep them off the stuff and head them the right direction for rehab and stuff. But you know what amazes me is, there's people out here that are, and I always say this, there are people out here dying to live, and other people out here living to die, and it's really saddens me to think that someone might be dying of cancer, but here and they don't have a choice. But someone who's on heroin or another drug that's taking their own life, because it's if you look at pictures of someone that's on something, whether it's heroin or crack or whatever, and they've been a steady user of this stuff, and within 2 or 3 years they look like they've gained or look like they've aged like 20, 25, 30 years, and they got sores all over them, their teeth are falling out. What kind of life is that? It's up to you. It's up to you to get off of it. And that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I think that's good, solid advice from someone who knows. And I do want to say, when David came to me as the mayor and said he wanted to do this, I said, David, I know nothing about it, but I think it's a good idea. Move forward. And then he kept me informed all the time he was working at this. It didn't cost the taxpayer a whole lot more money because we were using our police officers. They were teaming together when they were on duty. They were doing a good job. And I do know this, that we were recognized by the state on several different occasions for what we were able to do, and they patterned other task forces around the state of Indiana after what we did. Mm-hmm. So you guys are to be commended for what you did. I know you're not proud to put people in jail, but if you saved their lives, and you did get some people on rehab, and we're going to get many more on rehab, it's worth it. If we can save one life and make one family not have to go through this, it's bad. When you mentioned, yeah, it's devastating to the family. I've had funerals of these people that have overdosed, and it is devastating. They sit there and say, just why? Why did this happen to my daughter? Why did this happen to my son or my dad or my father or my mother? And it's devastating. So it's not only to you, but to the family.
One other thing, when people are on drugs in general, period, they get desperate, and so they steal. I mean, of course, we had a bank robbery the other day. We might touch on that in a few minutes. But we had a attempted robbery up at the Northside Package Store a few months ago, and that guy was all messed up on heroin, and ironically, we had a task force unit in the area on a surveillance of a house, and the dispatch came out and they see the guy running. So the task force went and apprehended this guy, and but my point is when you're on this stuff, regardless what it is, you steal from your family, your friends, and you go out here and commit burglaries or robberies and this type of thing, and you're desperate. And it was told to me by a recovering drug addict, when you're needing that fix and when you're needing that hit. It's like being in a river or being in a lake and you can't swim and you're drowning, and you're fighting your way and clawing your way up and trying to stay afloat. And so the only way us police officers know about this stuff is what we hear from people who have had the addiction, and they come back and they talk to us and tell us what they went through and what they feel. And they said the best thing, and I know you've had it said to you too, Brian, the best thing for us to happen is to be arrested and put in jail to where they can dry out. And then they have some choices to make, and it's their choice. They want to help or get help and try to fight this thing, or you going to go back into it and just let it take you. Okay, and what happens there, it increases the funeral home business. And I hate to put it that way, but I'm being pretty blunt about it.
Well, say somebody's watching our program tonight, and they're having a problem, and they're trying to get out of it, and they're taking hits or whatever you call them, and say tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock they come down to the lobby and they tell Jackie, I want to see the police chief, or I want to see Dennis, and they come in your office and say, I'm on heroin, I'm in trouble, I want to get off. Would you arrest them? Would you get them help?
we would try to get them help right there if they're coming in and talk to us.
So is that an option, to go in and talk to a police officer?
Well, yeah, that could be, but the point of the matter, we're going to have to refer them to somebody that's trained in that area.
But I mean, can they do that without having to go to jail?
Long as they don't have it on them, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
As long as they don't have it in their
anyone ever
possession.
come and done that to you? Just said, hey, I'm an addict, I need help? Have either one of you had anybody like that come to you?
No, I haven't.
You're always on the other end.
That's correct. Now, I will say that we have got people help that we have encountered during this task force.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unfortunately, the success rate is minimal, but there have been some successes that we have dealt with, that people have actually got clean and they've got jobs, and they're done with it.
That's wonderful.
You know, it may be a handful, but that's a handful that we don't have to deal with again, and they're a productive, part of the community again.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And they're trying to help out others.
Yeah, and that sometimes happens.
Mm-hmm.
Some people that make mistakes, and then they. Do you think that the morality of our country has gone down the tubes? I mean, I look at it from, I'm now 72, and maybe I was naive, but I can't remember this problem when I went to school. I can't remember this problem in my early years.
The thing
maybe it
is,
was another problem. I don't know.
The thing is, most of these people that are, well, just like our deaths, and most of the people we arrest, not all, but most of them, are in their late teens through their early 30s. Now, we have a few in their 40s and 50s, but most of them, would you say, Brian, most of them late teens or early 30s?
Yeah, a majority.
It's the majority of them. And a lot of it, I mean, I'm talking for Connersville, but it obviously it's elsewhere the same thing. Lack of employment. We don't have any big employment here anymore, and
lack of a home.
Lack
of parents caring,
and
lack of education.
But but there again, we some people we put in jail have college educations, have had good jobs, and their family loves them. So it's not always just someone down on their luck. They started out good, clean, and everything else, and it's just something what goes out and grabs you, and it gives you a sensation of
Well, you know,
whatever.
I was sitting in church last week and the preacher was preaching, and he said, if there's anybody here today that doesn't have a problem either financially, physically, morally, and he went on all other issues, he said, please stand up. And there were about 500 in that church, and nobody stood up. All of us, throughout life, some of our problems are more severe. The people are looking at you, 2 police officers here tonight, dressed perfect, and my guess is, throughout your life, 20 years on the police department, David, throughout your life, you've had problems that you had to face, and you had to overcome them, one way or another. And I think it's that way in life. We have to, as grown-ups, once we get through that childhood and that foolishness, we have to learn to be able to live in this society. And you know, you and I work together every day. It's not easy. I watch you. I watch what you go through. People think it's a piece of cake, you know, and it's not. And people think what I do, I just sit at a desk or I just show up, you know. It's not, you know. And I'm sure, Brian Metcalf, when you're out there in that car at 12 o'clock at night and you got to walk up to that car not knowing what you're facing, it's not a fun game.
No, it's not.
And that has certainly changed over the years, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And
Yes, it has.
I know it's changed in the 8 years I've been downtown with the police department. It is just, police officers were not threatened 8 years ago like they are today. They didn't have to go through what they're going through. They weren't treated the way they are. In just 8 years, I can see the big change. And I'm going to step out on a limb here tonight, and I'm going to say this. I think when they took prayer out of the school, they took it out because they thought we were offending somebody in school by making them pray or asking them to pray. But how many are we offending when we go into a church and shoot 9 people? We go into school and shoot 30 or 40 people. Those things didn't happen. If you don't have a basis for morality, if you don't have some basis, and I don't see that we have a basis. Hey, he's got something I like, I'll just steal it from him. There's no consequence to that theft. Just if you got it, he wants it, just take it from him. Now, I know you guys are going to say, well, I'm nuts, but I'm telling you, I think there's a direct relationship in the way society is and the way that we're operating today. Morality has gone down the tubes, and because every day of our lives we have to lean on somebody, something to help us get through each day. Yeah, there's wonderful, happy times in life, but there's times when you need somebody and you need help, and you have to have a sense of morality built into you. When I grew up, if you took something and your mother found out or your dad found out, you got whipped and you had to take it back. If you did something wrong, you got whipped. And yet, in today's world, if they do something wrong in school, it's the teacher's fault. If they do something wrong out on the road, it's the cop's fault. He shouldn't have done that, you know. And you hear it, I'm sure. And have you ever made an arrest when you pick somebody up, all they had was 2 beers? Anybody ever admit they had more than 2 beers? Not very often.
Not very often.
He's smiling over there. I served as a police officer in Hagerstown for a year, part-time work when I was really young, getting started. And in a little town of Hagerstown, everybody I ever stopped for drunk driving, they just had 2 beers. I had a guy one night ran over a fire hydrant and water was spraying 20, 30 foot in the air. He didn't even know what it was, but he just had 2 beers.
Of course, 2 beers could be
2 big ones.
2 quarts, 2 cases, you know.
Well, I don't mean to make funny of it. Let's talk about being a police officer. There might be some young people out there. What made you want to be a police officer, Sergeant Metcalf?
Well, I guess I always kind of had that feeling that I just wanted to serve the community, be a public servant.
Were you born in Wayne County, or?
I was born in Shelby. I was actually born in Johnson County. Grew up in Shelby County.
Okay. You went to school. Where'd you go to school?
I went to high school at Southwestern high school in Shelby County, and did some schooling, did some military. Found out the state police is that was the department that caught my eye. A little adventure. I could go anywhere I wanted. So I went through the process, and actually before you always wonder what decision or what happens to you to actually make you truly make that decision what you want to be. I guess my decision for me, or what actually changed not changed my mind, but just concrete what I was thinking, was I was involved in a crash as a teenager, which involved a drunk driver. He pulled out in front of me, and we hit head on. And it was just the whole process, what had happened, knowing that someone's decision that they made affected my life so dramatically, and almost took my life. That I think that was my point there, where I thought, I can do something about that. So that's the direction I took from that point on. That's what I wanted to do.
You applied to the state police, were accepted, went to the academy?
I went through the academy. It was a 6-month academy, 3-month field training officer program, which we ride with another trooper during that time. And then they give you your assigned police vehicle, and then you're put on probation for 1 year. So at any given time during your first year, if they feel that you are not up to task, then they can release you from the department. And then after that, you do 25 and get your benefits. So
you're nearing retirement.
That's correct.
Will you retire at 25, or do you have to?
Don't have to. You have to retire at 65. With my department, you have to retire at 65. So when 25 comes up, I'll probably be able to give you an answer then, but
you're not going to
not
speculate.
today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and how old are you today?
Let's see. Do I have to say that?
No.
I guess it really doesn't
No.
matter. I'm 43. 43
You're just a
years
child,
old.
man.
I know I'm a child.
Yeah. So you've been
Told that
on-
every day.
Yeah, you started real young.
Yeah, I think I was 22. I was 22. You have to be on our department. You have to be 21. You have to be 21 when you are given your appointment, which means graduated from the academy and ready to patrol. So we actually had someone in my academy that was 20 years old, but he turned 21 while he was in our police academy, which is up in Plainfield, Indiana.
How many state police officers are they in the state?
I don't know what our number is now. I think about 1,400. I think state troopers.
That's
what we
to
have.
patrol 92 counties.
Patrol 92 counties.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And I'm not asking what you make, but what's an average state policeman make when he first starts?
I haven't looked at that matrix in such a long time.
You don't even know, huh?
I can tell you this: you can hop online, and our matrix is there right on our website, and you can look at the process. You can look up how much we get paid. You can look at our benefits, what we get.
Has it been a good career?
Yes.
Would you choose a different one, knowing what you know today?
No. I wouldn't have done anything different. And honestly, if you get into this job for the pay, you probably should do something else, because
It's not that good.
you're not going to get rich, and you're going to be disappointed. So, and really, most police officers are that way. You have a sense of community. You have a sense of, you have a sense of being a public servant, putting the community before anything else, before yourself. So, I think all police officers kind of have that within them. Do I want to get paid more? Yeah. Do you want to get paid more? Absolutely. Everyone wants to get paid more, but it's about service rather than.
Tell me, has it affected your family?
Yeah. It's affected my family. It's affected my extended family. It's affected my friends.
Good or bad?
Both.
Some good and some
Yeah.
bad.
Some good, some bad.
It takes a special wife to handle it, doesn't it?
Yep. So
Does she worry about you?
Yeah, kids do. You know, kids worry, I think, all the time. They may not say anything, but I know they do.
Especially when they watch TV.
That's right. I need to stop watching that TV.
David, how many years you got?
30, just turned 35 this month.
35 years?
June 1st.
And you've been everything from a patrolman to
I've been through a patrolman, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. I held all them ranks for an ample amount of time, 2 or 3 years, each one. And I've been chief since 2008. I spent in the Army. I was a military policeman, and I was a combat MP, but we did post patrol, and then I got assigned to the Provost Marshal's office in the traffic division. I rode a Harley Davidson motorcycle. I had to go to Louisiana State Police Motorcycle School for like 2 weeks, and that was interesting.
Yeah, that was one of those shift on a tank.
No,
Was
it,
it?
that, it was an AMF.
Oh.
AMF night. There were 75 models AMFs.
Oh man.
Them oil leaking, vibrating hunks of junk.
Don't say
but,
that. Can't say that on TV.
I can't say that about a Harley, can I?
No.
But anyway, they were pretty. We had to go through a maintenance course on them too. So but anyway,
you had to do over. Would you do something different?
No, I would probably stay in the same line of work. I was also a detective for a while, also. But through my law enforcement career, and I have to agree with Brian, something comes within you. You want to help people, and you want to go out here and make a difference. You know, it might be a small difference, but you go out here and you want to do a good job and help people and get the bad guys off the street, this type of thing. And it is how you have to have that in you to want to do that. You have to have that want. And since I've been the chief, and I'm pushing 40 years in law enforcement, counting my military police time. My advice to people out there, like Sergeant Metcalf said, if you're looking for a high-paying job, it's not in law enforcement. I don't care where you go. I don't care if it's L.A. or New York City or Indianapolis. You look at your price of living in them places. You know, it all equals out to what you're getting paid. But I would suggest, and I've had people ask me this all the time, Mayor, being in my position, that a lot of people going to school out here to help themselves get into law enforcement, and I try to discourage people to taking criminal justice degrees, because criminal justice degree, yeah, it'll help you in the way of law, as far as maybe being a probation officer or maybe a law enforcement officer. But I look at, and I've talked to other chiefs before around this state and also other states, but they'd rather see somebody come in there with a business management degree or a psychology degree or sociology or look at Dennis, he's an engineer. Because, and the reason I'm saying this is because criminal justice is basically good for one thing. And if you get a degree in whatever it is, engineering or whatever, it can carry you through anything. Business management I was pushing, for instance, or accounting. These type of degrees like this will help you in law enforcement too. And so, because what's criminal justice degrees, whether it's associates or a bachelor's, and then well, some side I'm not going to be a cop, so I don't want to do that no more. So it isn't going to really do a whole lot of good.
I noticed I went to the graduation at IU East, and there was probably 20, 30 people got a criminal justice degree, and I wondered where they go with that.
Well, if they're going to follow through with that, but a lot of people get into law enforcement, and I know Brian's seen this too. A lot of people get in law enforcement, they find out this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. I can't do this stuff no more. I can't handle the blood and all this type of stuff. We go on a lot of bad accidents. We've been in shootings. We go to all these things, and it's in Mary, you for what you've been through and being a coroner and everything else, you know what we're talking about. And if you don't have what it takes to deal with them things and stuff like this, then you'll find out that, hey, I got a criminal justice degree, and I'm going to I'd rather be an engineer, or I'd rather be some kind of a medical person or something. So I'm just giving you a little insight of what administration looks at around the country as far as chiefs of police or sheriffs and stuff like this. It'd be better to have a background or something to fall back on, just not for yourself, because whatever you got will help you in law enforcement. It doesn't have to be criminal justice. So I'll get off that.
What do you think, Sergeant Metcalf?
I mean, I agree. I mean, we have many nurses on our department. Yeah, I would agree, because criminal justice really narrows you to what you can do. I mean, you can go to law school afterwards, but it really narrows down your marketability. You know, as an individual.
Lots of college kids today. My son got a degree in 2014 in sociology and business technology, and he's working for the hospital bed company. But the fact that you went to a four-year college and you got a degree, it'll help you no matter what you're doing. They look at you first, and not everybody can go and get a four-year degree. And then there's the specialty fields like being a nurse or, X-ray technician, or a lot of health fields that you can get into today.
In criminal justice, if you get hard on a police department, whatever police department, you're going to get enough of criminal justice.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get a lot of it.
Well,
So,
Dave, we got about, 25 policemen over there now?
25 counting myself, Chris.
25. It's down from what one time it was 44.
It was about 43, 44,
44.
at one time.
And we're still policing the town. Of course, we're not as big, quite as big.
We don't have the population we
Population's
did
down
back
a little,
then,
but we got more meanness out there, don't we?
yeah.
I always call it meanness because we
it's-
don't have a lot of murders, we don't have a lot of rapes, we don't have a lot of burglaries, other than Fifth Third. But I guess our Fifth Third bank robber's already in jail.
Yeah, he got
He
arrested
didn't
down
even
in
get to
Kentucky.
spend his money, did he?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you guys, I think this has been a great program, because I asked you the questions that I don't understand. So if I don't understand them, I know the public out there about this heroin and about how it works. We have a better understanding. And I think that as citizens, we need to know. We read in the paper 13 arrested, 5 arrested, 7 arrested, and it's alarming. It makes the community look bad. However, as you say, it's in every community, every state. I get the hometown paper from way up in the UP of Michigan. They're battling the same thing, only on a smaller scale, because they got smaller population. And you just, sometimes I wonder how do people in California know to do what we're doing in Indiana, or how do we know what to do in Indiana and what they're doing in California? How does it get across the country like that? But boy, it spreads like fire. We've got 1 minute left, folks. Next month, Fran's going to be here, and I think he's going to have a real special program for you. It's going to be a sports program, and I think it's going to be really something. I'm working on it, and he's working on it, so you want to watch that in the paper. And then the following month, in August, I'm going to have the House of Ruth, and I believe maybe the sheriff or one of the judges or the prosecutor we're trying to work with to talk about how we can help people. So watch for our programs. I want to thank both of you for coming tonight and taking your time. I appreciate what you're doing. You're still doing it. The task force is working. So for tonight, thank you for watching, and good night.